I think in my body I feel friction in my navigating the world, and so I think in my practice I look for things to create that same friction, that same tension. You know, working with a material like floss and it just like sticking to your fingers as you're trying to like tie knots and bead it. I don't know, for me that kind of like allows your brain to escape where you are physically and like transport yourself almost in this meta way. Get really intimate with material, intimate to the point where the material becomes something else and I become something else and the thing I make it become something else. And that to me is like, that's the sweet spot. I was on a football scholarship at Truman State University and I played wide receiver. So while I was in school, I was like, let me at least major in something that I enjoy. So that's why art was my major. I didn't necessarily see myself as an artist. It was like, you know, I like drawing, and if I'm gonna be here, I might as well be doing something I like doing. But that ended up really like being my saving grace. I got hurt essentially my senior year to the point where I kind of felt like I couldn't recover. It was a shoulder injury. So I ended up walking away from the team, and that's when I kind of like started to question like who I was, because my identity was so attached to sports, but then like this thing that was like at the core of myself literally got ripped out of my body. You know, just existing as like a queer Black man in the world whose identity was attached to sports, which on some level there's identity attached to masculinity, but a very particular type of masculinity that you get shown, especially in like a football locker room. It's a very particular type of masculinity that I was seeing that I did not align with, but was a part of, like in a real way. And so there's like this, I think, a thread of like contradiction in my own life. Existing in the world, asking myself questions and being like, well, what do I do with these thoughts, with these ideas? And, you know, going to material, whether that be like fabric or color or texture. I feel like that's hip hop, you know, like bringing together samples, old remnants, disparate parts to kind of create this freshness. I think that's Black magic. I grew up in a beauty salon, so a lot of the like beads or acrylic nails and the braids, like that stuff is direct reference from that. And not even just the beauty salon, just like growing up in Black neighborhoods. This soft sculpture practice that I have now started maybe 3 years ago. The homies have been real. I think that it has taken me a while to name them, you know, and to like make a real space, three-dimensional space, tangible space in my practice for them to realize themselves. It starts with questions like, you know, what can a mixed media installation be? How monumental can it be? How grand can it be? It ended up in these 3 different modes of making soft sculpture. So the net being like one textile piece, or the rug being another textile piece, and then the homies, the sculptures themselves. The homies became real, like real people, real entities in my studio. I'm like, well, if they're real to me, like how more real can they be in the context of an exhibition? How more real can they be to viewers? And so I started to visualize the gallery as like this playpen. If they could move, how would they move? If they could hang, where would they hang out at? If they had a space to exist, how would they exist? And that we were like coming to them. We're meeting them at their place rather than the work being on display. And so I wanted folks to meet the homies where they were. So that's why you have some homies like high in the air behind the net, and where you can like barely interact with the homie. You can only see like the backside. But I wanted them to have some kind of like a sense of agency. So like, this must be the place to be. Not necessarily the gallery space, but the energy that the installation is kind of conjuring. It's the place that I'm hoping we all can be, can find ourselves, can allow ourselves to get to. I think about like how different my life would be had because I've always been interested in art. How different my life would be had I not been consumed by boyhood, you know, being socialized as a boy in Gary, Indiana. Like, if that hadn't have happened, how may I have envisioned myself? How may I have presented myself? How may I have treated myself, you know? I think that the work is kind of like reaching back in a way and like hugging. There's this Steve Lacy song. There's something along the lines of that, like, if I could travel through time, I would tell myself that you'll be fine. And so that's, I think, what the work is also doing. I'm having this like experience with the homies in my studio that's in real time having experience, but it's also like reaching back to my younger self and being like, yeah, like you good, bro. Like, it's okay.